Wars have raged across countless galaxies, and in each one, battles are won not just by weapons or strategies, but by the hearts of those willing to fight. The Clone Wars had consumed the Republic for years, Jedi leading clone armies against endless waves of separatist droids. But on this day, above the war-torn planet of Christophsis, something impossible tore through the fabric of space itself. A rift of blue energy crackled between dimensions, and through it fell a soldier who would change everything. Captain Steve Rogers had been in the middle of a mission when the Tesseract malfunctioned. One moment he was breaching a Hydra facility, shield raised against enemy fire. The next, reality fractured around him in a cascade of cosmic energy. When his boots hit solid ground again, the world had changed. Gone were the forests of Europe. Instead, crystalline towers stretched toward a blood-red sky, and the air rang with unfamiliar sounds. The sharp crack of energy weapons, the mechanical march of distant armies, and screams in languages he didn't recognize. Steve rolled behind cover as bolts of superheated plasma tore past where his head had been seconds before. His training kicked in instantly. Assess, adapt, survive. He raised his shield, and the vibranium surface deflected the incoming fire with ease. The energy bolts ricocheted harmlessly away, and Steve's eyes narrowed as he processed what he was seeing. Not bullets, energy weapons. The soldiers firing at him wore white armor unlike anything he'd encountered, but beyond them, he saw what they were fighting. Emotionless droids advancing in perfect formation, their weapons blazing. Fall back. Fall back! The voice crackled through a helmet speaker, human but desperate. Steve watched as a squad of 6 white-armored soldiers retreated under withering droid fire. One stumbled, hit in the leg, and immediately 2 of his squad mates broke formation to drag him to safety. The action was instinctive, selfless, the mark of real soldiers, not the Nazi fanatics Steve was used to fighting. But they wouldn't make it. Steve could see the tactical situation clearly. The droids were flanking, cutting off their escape route. In 30 seconds, that squad would be surrounded and eliminated. Steve Rogers made his decision in less than 1. He burst from cover, shield leading, and sprinted toward the battle. The droids immediately redirected fire toward this new target. Steve's enhanced reflexes processed the incoming trajectories faster than any normal human could, and his shield moved in precise arcs, deflecting bolt after bolt. He closed the distance in seconds, and when he reached the first droid, his shield crashed into its chassis with enough force to send it flying backward into 2 more. The white-armored soldiers froze, watching in shock as this stranger in unusual armor tore through their enemies with impossible skill. Steve's shield became a blur of motion, blocking, striking, throwing. The vibranium disc flew from his hand, ricocheted off 3 droid heads with perfect accuracy, and returned to his grip as if drawn by magnetism. Within minutes, the immediate threat was neutralized. Steve turned to the soldiers, breathing steady despite the exertion. Up close, he could see their armor was worn, battle-scarred. Professional soldiers, every one of them. The one who'd been hit was being bandaged by his brothers, and Steve noted the efficiency of their field medicine. "You men all right?" Steve asked, his voice carrying the natural authority of someone used to command. The soldiers stared at him. One finally spoke, his voice filtered through his helmet. What are you?" "Captain Steve Rogers, United States Army." Steve extended his hand, knowing the gesture might mean nothing here, but offering it anyway. "And you are?" The soldier hesitated, then clasped Steve's hand. CT-7567, sir. Captain of Torrent Company, 501st Legion. My men call me Rex. Steve noted the designation. A number, not a name. His jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his expression neutral. Well, Captain Rex, looks like you could use some backup. That's an understatement, sir. Rex gestured to the battlefield around them. We're pinned down across 3 sectors. Separatist forces have us outnumbered 5-1, and our supply lines are cut. General Skywalker is leading the main assault, but we're getting shredded out here. He paused. Where did you come from? We didn't get word about reinforcements. Steve looked up at the sky, where strange ships engaged in aerial combat, and knew the truth would sound insane. It's complicated, but I'm here now, and I'm not about to let good soldiers die when I can help. Rex's helmet tilted slightly, as if studying Steve. You're not Republic military. Your armor, your weapon, that shield, none of it matches any tech I've seen, but you just saved my squad. He made a decision. Command is going to want to meet you. Can you fight your way to the Republic staging area? Steve Rogers smiled, the expression carrying no humor, only grim determination. Lead the way, Captain. What followed was a running battle through the crystalline streets of Christophsis. Steve quickly adapted to the new weapons and tactics. The enemy droids were numerous but predictable. They fought with mechanical precision but lacked imagination. Steve's shield proved devastatingly effective against their blaster fire, and his enhanced strength allowed him to tear through their ranks with brutal efficiency. But it was his leadership that truly made the difference. As they fought, Steve coordinated with Rex's squad, using hand signals and clear, concise commands. He identified weak points in the droid formations, called out flanking maneuvers, and most importantly, he made sure every clone trooper in his vicinity knew their life mattered. When one trooper took a hit, Steve was there, shield covering him while his brothers pulled him to safety. You fight like a Jedi, Rex said as they reached the Republic lines, but you don't carry a lightsaber. Don't need one, Steve replied, deflecting another volley of blaster fire. This shield's never let me down. The Republic staging area was controlled chaos. Clone troopers moving with military precision, medical tents filled with wounded, and at the center, a command post where holographic tactical displays showed the larger battle. Steve was immediately surrounded by clone troopers with raised weapons, but Rex stepped forward. Stand down. This man just saved my entire squad. He fights for the Republic. I fight for what's right, Steve corrected quietly. If the Republic stands for freedom, then we're on the same side. A new voice cut through the tension. Bold words for someone who appeared out of nowhere. Steve turned to see a young man in Jedi robes approaching, a lightsaber hanging from his belt. He was younger than Steve expected for a general, but his eyes carried the weight of command. Beside him walked another man in armor, this one's helmet decorated with distinctive markings. General Skywalker, Rex saluted. This man just helped us fight our way back from Sector 7. He's different. Anakin Skywalker studied Steve with open curiosity. Different is one word for it. I felt your arrival through the Force, like reality itself tore open. Who are you, and how did you get here? Steve met his gaze steadily. Captain Steve Rogers. As for how I got here, I'm not entirely sure. Some kind of energy anomaly during a mission. One moment I was fighting in my world, the next I'm here." He gestured to the battlefield. "But the why doesn't matter right now. You've got soldiers dying out there, and from what I can see, you're fighting a defensive battle when you should be on the offensive." Anakin's eyebrows rose. "Is that so? You've been here less than an hour and you're already critiquing our tactics?" "I've been a soldier longer than you've been alive, son," Steve said, his tone respectful but firm. "And I've learned that the best way to protect your people is to take the fight to the enemy. You're letting them dictate the terms of engagement." For a moment, tension crackled between them. Then Anakin laughed, the sound genuine. "I like you. Most people don't talk to Jedi generals like that." He extended his hand. "Anakin Skywalker, and you might be right. The Council wants us to hold position, but holding position just means more of my men die." Steve shook his hand, noting the firmness of the grip. "Then let's change that." What followed was an emergency strategy session. Steve studied the holographic battlefield display with the eye of an experienced tactician. The Republic forces were spread thin, trying to hold multiple positions against superior numbers. The Separatist droid army was slowly grinding them down through sheer attrition. "You're fighting their battle," Steve said, pointing to the display. "They want a slow, grinding engagement because droids don't get tired and don't care about casualties. But soldiers do. You need to hit them hard and fast, break their command structure." "The shield generator," Anakin said, understanding dawning. "If we take it out, their energy shields collapse and we can call in air support." "Exactly. Small team, fast strike. In and out before they can react." Steve looked at the assembled clone officers. "I'll lead the assault team if you'll have me." The clone commander with the decorated helmet, Commander Cody, Steve learned, spoke up. "With all due respect, sir, we don't know anything about you. You could be a separatist infiltrator." "He saved my squad," Rex interjected. "Fought like nothing I've ever seen. If he wanted to sabotage us, he's had plenty of opportunities." Steve understood Cody's hesitation. In his position, Steve would demand the same verification. "I get it. You don't know me. And you shouldn't trust me on faith alone. So test me. Put me in the field with your best men. If I'm a liability, you'll know soon enough." Anakin studied Steve for a long moment, then nodded. "Rex, form a strike team. Captain Rogers goes with you. If he's as good as you say, we'll need every advantage we can get." He turned to Steve. "But understand this. If you're playing us, if you endanger my men, Jedi or not, I will stop you." "I wouldn't expect anything less," Steve replied. "And for what it's worth, General, I've spent my entire life fighting for people's freedom. I'm not about to stop now, no matter what galaxy I'm in." As the strike team assembled, Steve took a moment to observe the clone troopers more closely. Their movements were synchronized, their training evident in every action, but something troubled him. The way officers referred to them by numbers, the casual acceptance of casualties, the lack of names beyond their designation codes. These were men. He could see it in the way they helped wounded brothers, in the jokes they shared during brief respites, in the way they mourned their fallen. But they were treated like equipment. Steve pushed the thought aside for now. There would be time for questions later. Right now, soldiers needed him, and Captain America had never turned his back on soldiers in need. Rex approached, his helmet under one arm, revealing a face that looked younger than his bearings suggested. "Strike team is ready, sir. 12 of us, including you, best men in the 501st. Steve looked at the assembled troopers. Each one stood ready, weapons checked, armor sealed. Professional soldiers who'd earned his respect in minutes. Then let's go bring them home. As they moved toward the staging area, preparing for the mission that would take them deep into enemy territory, Steve Rogers had no idea that his arrival would set in motion events that would shake the very foundation of the Clone Wars. He didn't know about Order 66, about the inhibitor chips hidden in every clone's brain, or about the Sith Lord manipulating the galaxy toward darkness. All he knew was that soldiers were fighting and dying in a war they didn't fully understand, and he'd spent his entire life standing between good people and those who would harm them. The galaxy far, far away was about to learn what it meant when Captain America made a promise to his brothers in arms. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The mission briefing was swift and efficient. Steve absorbed the tactical information with the practiced ease of a soldier who'd planned dozens of operations behind enemy lines. The Separatist shield generator was housed in a fortified position 3 clicks from Republic lines, defended by multiple droid battalions and automated defenses. A frontal assault would be suicide. Fortunately, Steve Rogers had never been one for frontal assaults, when a smarter approach would save lives. "We'll use the crystal formations for cover," Steve said, tracing a route on the holographic map. "Move in 2-man teams, maintain communication discipline. Once we're in position, simultaneous strike on 3 points. Draw their forces apart. Then hit the generator before they can reorganize." Rex nodded approvingly. "Solid plan." "You've done this before." "Once or twice," Steve replied with a slight smile. "Different war, same principles. Keep your men alive, complete the mission, get everyone home." One of the clone troopers, 5s according to his helmet markings, spoke up. "Sir, what about the droidekas? Those shields can withstand sustained fire. Your, shield..." He gestured uncertainly at the vibranium disc on Steve's back. Steve unclipped the shield and held it up. "Vibranium. Absorbs vibrations and kinetic energy. Back home, it's the strongest metal we have. I've used it against everything from bullets to energy beams. Your droidekas won't be a problem." "Vibranium," Rex repeated, curiosity evident in his tone. "Never heard of it. What planet does it come from?" "A place called Wakanda," Steve said. "Long way from here. Different dimension, apparently." He saw the confusion on their faces and shook his head. "Story for another time. Right now, we've got work to do." The strike team moved out under cover of darkness, the twin moons of Christophsis casting strange shadows across the crystalline landscape. Steve moved with practiced silence, his enhanced senses picking up details the others missed, the subtle hum of droid patrols, the displacement of air as vulture droids passed overhead, the distant thunder of artillery. But he also noticed something else, the way the clone troopers moved together, anticipating each other's actions without verbal communication. It went beyond training. There was a connection between them, something almost instinctive. Brothers, in the truest sense. They encountered their first patrol 15 minutes into the mission. 6 battle droids marching in formation, sensors sweeping the area. Steve hand-signaled for the team to hold position, then made his move. He'd learned in the previous battle that these droids relied heavily on visual sensors and pre-programmed responses. They weren't creative, couldn't adapt quickly to unexpected threats. Steve was very good at being unexpected. He threw his shield low, and the vibranium disc ricocheted off the ground at an angle the droids didn't anticipate. It smashed through the lead droid's legs, then bounced upward to decapitate the second. Before the others could react, clone troopers opened fire with precision shots, their weapons set to low power to minimize noise. Within seconds, the patrol was scrap metal. "Clean work," Steve acknowledged as his shield returned to his hand. "But we're on a clock. Let's move." They pushed deeper into Separatist territory, and Steve's tactical mind cataloged everything. The droid deployment patterns, the gaps in their sensor coverage, the way their command structure relied on a central control signal, weaknesses. Every army had them, and Steve had built a career on exploiting them. But he also noticed something troubling. The clone troopers followed orders with mechanical precision, never questioning, never hesitating. When Steve suggested alternate approaches, they adapted instantly. But there was something almost programmed about their responses. It reminded him uncomfortably of the propaganda he'd seen during his USO days. Soldiers portrayed as unthinking machines rather than thinking men. "Rex," Steve said quietly as they held position behind a crystal outcropping. "How long have you been fighting this war?" "Since Geonosis," Rex replied, his voice filtered through his helmet. 3 years, sir. Feels longer." 3 years of constant combat. Steve had seen what that did to soldiers, the exhaustion, the trauma, the weight of loss. "That's a long deployment. When's your leave rotation?" Rex's helmet tilted slightly, and Steve sensed confusion. "Leave, sir. Rest and recuperation. Time away from the front lines. Recovery time between deployments." There was a pause. When Rex spoke again, his voice was carefully neutral. "Clone troopers don't get leave, Captain. We were created for this war. When the fighting stops, we'll serve wherever the Republic needs us." Created for this war. The words hit Steve like a physical blow. He'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed was something else entirely. These men, and they were men, whatever their origin, had been brought into existence specifically to fight and die for a government they had no say in. Steve had spent years fighting against the idea that some lives were worth less than others, that some people were created to serve while others were born to command. Everything in him rebelled against what he was hearing, but this wasn't his world, wasn't his war. He had no authority here, no standing to question the Republic's methods. And yet, looking at these soldiers, watching the way Fives checked on his brother Echo, the way Rex took point to protect his men, the way they fought not just with skill, but with genuine care for each other, Steve knew he couldn't stay silent forever. Not when they reminded him so much of the Howling Commandos, the brothers he'd fought beside and lost. "Contact!" The warning came from Echo, positioned on their flank. Droidicas, 3 of them, closing fast. The destroyer droids rolled into position with terrifying speed, their shields snapping into place as they opened fire. The clone troopers immediately took cover, their weapons ineffective against the energy barriers. Steve assessed the situation in a heartbeat. The droidicas were positioned to cut off their advance, and their overlapping fields of fire covered the entire approach to the generator. "Suppressing fire," Rex ordered. "Keep them focused forward." Steve was already moving. He sprinted left, shield raised, drawing fire from the nearest droideca. The energy bolts hammered into the vibranium, and Steve felt the familiar sensation of kinetic absorption. The shield was doing exactly what it was designed to do, protecting him while storing the energy of each impact. He closed the distance and the droideka tried to track his movement, but Steve was faster. He slammed the shield into its barrier with all his enhanced strength, and the stored kinetic energy released in a single, devastating impact. The droideka's shield collapsed, sparking and failing, and Steve's follow-up strike tore through its central processor. The other two droidekas tried to redirect fire, but the clone troopers were already exploiting the opening Steve had created. Concentrated fire from multiple angles overwhelmed the droids' shields, and within seconds, all three were smoking ruins. "That shield of yours is something else," Fives said, genuine admiration in his voice. "I've never seen anyone take down a droideka hand to hand." "It's not the shield," Steve replied, slightly breathless. "It's knowing when to attack and when to defend. Your people gave me the opening I needed." "Our people," Rex corrected. "You're fighting with us, sir. That makes you one of us." Steve felt something tighten in his chest. These men had accepted him without question, trusted him with their lives, after knowing him for mere hours. It was the kind of loyalty and brotherhood he'd only found in combat, and it made what they were, what they'd been created to be, even more tragic. They reached the perimeter of the shield generator compound. The facility was heavily fortified. Walls of reinforced durasteel, automated turrets, and multiple droid patrols. Steve studied the defenses with a critical eye, formulating and discarding plans with rapid-fire precision. "There," he said, pointing to a ventilation shaft. "Too small for battle droids, not covered by the turrets. If we can get inside, we can bypass the main defenses." "That shaft is barely big enough for a person," Echo observed. "We'd have to go one at a time. If they detect us halfway through, then we make sure they don't detect us." Steve turned to Rex. "I'll go first. Once I'm inside, I'll disable the internal sensors. Then you follow with the demolitions expert." Rex hesitated. "Sir, with respect, you're not expendable. If something happens to you, then you complete the mission." Steve interrupted firmly. "The objective is the generator, not me. Your men's lives depend on taking it out." He met Rex's gaze steadily. "This is what I do, Captain, trust me." After a moment, Rex nodded. "All right, but if you get killed in there, General Skywalker is going to have questions I can't answer." Steve smiled grimly. "Then I better not get killed." The infiltration was tense but successful. Steve's enhanced physiology allowed him to move through the narrow shaft with controlled precision, and his training kept him silent. He emerged in a maintenance corridor, dispatched the two technician droids with quick, efficient strikes, and accessed the security console. The technology was unfamiliar, but the principles were universal. Find the right systems, disable them without triggering alarms, create a window for his team. Steve's fingers flew over the controls, translating strange symbols into tactical advantage through pure intuition and problem-solving skill. Within minutes, the internal sensors went dark, and Rex's team infiltrated the facility. But as Steve moved through the corridors with Rex at his side, they encountered something unexpected. Not more droids, but clone troopers. Republic soldiers wearing familiar white armor, but with different markings. They were guarding the shield generator from the inside. Steve's hand went up, signaling his team to hold position. Something was wrong. Why would Republic forces be defending a separatist installation? That's weird, Rex whispered. Those are clone troopers, but I don't recognize the unit designation, and they're definitely guarding this place. Steve's tactical instincts screamed warning. He'd seen this before. Soldiers in familiar uniforms defending enemy positions. Infiltrators, traitors, or something worse. Men who didn't know they were compromised. "We need information before we engage," Steve said quietly. "Can you identify their unit?" Rex enhanced the image through his helmet's optics. "Negative, sir. Those aren't standard Republic markings. And their posture, they're not acting like clones. Too rigid, too mechanical." Steve studied them more carefully and realized Rex was right. Clone troopers moved with purpose and precision, but they also showed personality, small gestures, individual quirks. These soldiers stood like automatons, their movements perfectly synchronized in a way that seemed unnatural. Droids, Steve realized. Separatist infiltrator droids wearing clone armor. "But why?" Rex asked. "What's the tactical advantage of—" He stopped, understanding dawning. "They're trying to make us think the Republic is working with the Separatists. Undermine trust in the clone army." Steve nodded grimly. "Psychological warfare. Make your enemy question their own forces." He'd seen similar tactics from Hydra. Infiltration, confusion, turning allies against each other. "We take them out, quiet and fast. Then we complete the mission." The fight was brief but intense. The infiltrator droids were good, better than standard battle droids, but they lacked the adaptability of real soldiers. Steve and the clone troopers moved with coordinated precision, taking down the false clones before they could raise an alarm. But as Steve examined one of the disabled droids, pulling back its helmet to reveal the mechanical face beneath, a thought crystallized in his mind. These droids were designed to look like clone troopers, to impersonate them. Which meant someone, likely the Separatists' leadership, understood that clone troopers could be imitated, could be controlled, could be made to act against their nature. And if that was possible with droids, what stopped someone from doing it to real clones? Steve filed the thought away. Priority 1 was completing the mission. Questions about clone trooper autonomy and control would have to wait. They reached the generator chamber, a massive room filled with humming machinery and crackling energy fields. The shield generator itself was a towering structure of advanced technology protected by redundant systems and fail-safes. But every system had a weak point. Steve had learned that lesson fighting Hydra's advanced weapons. "Here," he said, pointing to a cluster of power conduits. "If we overload these simultaneously, the feedback will cascade through the entire system. The generator will tear itself apart." The demolitions expert, a clone trooper named Hardcase, grinned behind his helmet. "I like the way you think, sir. Give me 3 minutes." Those 3 minutes felt like hours. Steve stood guard with Rex, listening for any sign of discovery, while Hardcase set the charges with expert precision. The other clone troopers maintained perimeter security, their weapons ready, their discipline absolute. "Captain Rogers," Rex said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Where you come from, are there soldiers like us, created for war?" Steve thought about the super soldier serum, about Dr. Erskine's vision of creating not an army of perfect soldiers, but one good man. "No," he said honestly. "Where I come from, soldiers choose to serve. They're volunteers fighting for something they believe in. Must be nice, Rex said, and there was something wistful in his voice. Having a choice. Before Steve could respond, Hardcase called out, "Charges set. We've got 2 minutes before this whole place goes up." "Move out," Rex ordered. "Same route, double time." They fought their way back through the facility, encountering heavy resistance as alarms finally blared to life. Battle droids poured into the corridors, but the clone troopers fought with the desperate efficiency of men who knew their lives depended on reaching the extraction point. Steve led the way, his shield clearing a path through the mechanical army. They burst out of the facility with 30 seconds to spare, sprinting across open ground toward the crystal formations that would provide cover. Behind them, the shield generator reached critical mass, and the explosion lit up the night sky like a second sun. The Separatist shields collapsed across the entire sector. Within minutes, Republic gunships roared overhead, their weapons tearing through the now vulnerable droid positions. The tide of battle shifted instantly. What had been a grinding stalemate became a rout as Republic forces pressed their advantage. Back at the command post, General Skywalker greeted them with undisguised satisfaction. "Outstanding work. The Separatists are in full retreat. We've retaken 3 sectors and captured their command center." He clapped Steve on the shoulder. "Captain Rogers, you just changed the course of this battle." Steve accepted the praise with a nod, but his mind was elsewhere. He looked at Rex and his men, exhausted, battered, but alive. Every single member of the strike team had made it back. In Steve's experience, that was a victory worth more than any tactical achievement. But as celebrations erupted around them, as clone troopers cheered their victory, Steve saw something that made his blood run cold. In the command center, General Skywalker was speaking with another Jedi, a stern-looking man with a beard and measured demeanor. They were discussing casualty reports, and Steve overheard fragments of the conversation. "Acceptable losses. The clones can be replaced. Production facilities on Camino. Replaced, like equipment, like machines." Steve's jaw tightened. These men, Rex, Fives, Echo, Hardcase, all of them, weren't equipment to be replaced. They were soldiers who deserved the same respect, the same rights, the same dignity as anyone who put their life on the line for others. And Steve Rogers had never been good at staying quiet when he saw injustice. "General Skywalker," Steve said, his voice cutting through the celebration. "I need to speak with you and the Jedi Council now." Anakin raised an eyebrow at Steve's tone. "Can it wait? We just won a major victory." "No, sir," Steve replied, his voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "It can't." Rex and his men watched as Captain America walked toward the command center, his shoulders squared, his purpose clear. They didn't know what he intended to say to the Jedi, but they knew one thing with absolute certainty. This strange soldier from another world was about to shake the foundations of everything they'd been taught to accept. And in a war built on lies and manipulation, sometimes it took an outsider to see the truth. The Jedi Council chamber aboard the Republic Star Destroyer was austere and purposeful. A circular room with holographic projectors displaying the faces of council members scattered across the galaxy. Master Yoda's wizened features flickered in blue light. Mace Windu's stern expression regarded Steve with barely concealed skepticism. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood physically present, arms crossed, his bearing suggesting a man who'd learned caution through hard experience. Steve Steve Rogers stood at the center, still wearing his battle-worn uniform, shield mag locked to his back. He'd faced down senators, generals, and politicians before, but never an order of warrior monks with mystical powers. Still, intimidation had never been one of Steve's weaknesses. "Captain Rogers," Mace Windu began, his voice resonating with authority. "General Skywalker speaks highly of your combat performance. You helped secure a crucial victory today. However, your origins remain unclear. You claim to be from another dimension entirely." "I don't claim anything, Master Windu," Steve replied evenly. "I'm telling you what happened. One moment I was fighting in my world, the next I was here. I don't understand the mechanism, but I understand my situation well enough. Through the Force, since we do, great disruption in the fabric of reality," Yoda said, his ancient eyes studying Steve with unsettling intensity. "Accident your arrival was, intended to be here, you were not." "Maybe not," Steve acknowledged, "but I am here. And now that I've seen your war, I have questions that need answers." Anakin stepped forward, concern crossing his features. "Steve, maybe this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time, General," Steve interrupted, though his tone remained respectful. "I just led a strike team of clone troopers into enemy territory. 12 men trusted me with their lives. They fought with courage, skill, and brotherhood. They saved my life, and I saved theirs. That earns them my loyalty, and my loyalty means I ask the hard questions." Obi-Wan's expression sharpened. "What questions?" Steve took a breath, choosing his words carefully but refusing to soften them. "Those men, Rex, Fives, Echo, Hardcase, all of them, they're soldiers. Good soldiers, but they're treated like equipment. They don't have names beyond designation codes unless they choose them themselves. They don't get leave, don't get rest rotations, don't get a choice in whether they fight. And when they die, I heard officers talking about replacing them like you'd replace damaged droids." The silence in the chamber was absolute. Mace Windu's jaw tightened. "Captain Rogers, you've been in this galaxy for less than a day. You don't understand the complexities of—" "I understand soldiers," Steve cut in, his voice harder now. "I've been one my entire adult life. I've led men into impossible situations, watched brothers die, made the calls that cost lives to save others. So don't tell me I don't understand the complexity of war." He gestured toward the wider ship, where clone troopers maintained their posts. "Those men out there are some of the finest soldiers I've ever seen. They deserve better than being treated as expendable. They were created for this war," Obi-Wan said quietly, and there was something pained in his voice. "The clone army was commissioned by the Republic before any of us knew about it. They were born as soldiers, trained from childhood, designed specifically for combat. It's not ideal, but it's the reality we inherited." "Born as soldiers," Steve repeated, his tone flat. "Where I come from, we had a name for people who were owned by others, who had no choice in their fate, who were considered property instead of people. We fought a war to end that practice. It nearly tore my country apart." The implication hung heavy in the air. "You dare compare the Republic to slavers?" Mace Windu's voice carried warning, his hand drifting toward his lightsaber. Steve didn't flinch. "I'm comparing your treatment of the clones to slavery, Master Windu. And if that makes you angry, maybe you should ask yourself why." Anakin moved between them, hands raised. "Everyone calm down," Steve makes some valid points, even if his timing is terrible. Valid points, yes, Yoda acknowledged, surprising everyone. Troubled by this matter, the Council has been created for war. The clones were, but question we must. Does creation define destiny? Does purpose of birth remove right to choice? The ancient Jedi's ears drooped slightly. Easy answers, there are none. Steve felt some of the tension ease. At least Yoda was willing to engage with the question rather than dismiss it. Master Yoda, I'm not trying to undermine your war effort, but I've seen what happens when good people accept injustice because it's convenient, because it serves a larger purpose. It starts small, treating some lives as worth less than others. It ends with atrocities that haunt civilizations for generations. The Republic is not perfect, Obi-Wan admitted, stroking his beard thoughtfully. We've made compromises we never imagined we'd make, but we're fighting to preserve democracy, to stop the separatists from plunging the galaxy into chaos. The clone army is essential to that effort. I'm not saying disband the army, Steve clarified. I'm saying treat them like the men they are. Give them rights, recognition, choices when possible. Let them be soldiers by honor, not by chains they never chose to wear. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The holographic displays shifted to tactical readouts, showing multiple separatist cruisers dropping out of hyperspace. Count Dooku's distinctive warship led the formation, its weapons already charging. "It's a trap!" Anakin shouted, rushing toward the bridge. They knew we'd be vulnerable after the ground assault. The council meeting dissolved into chaos as Jedi rushed to battle stations. Steve followed Anakin, his tactical mind already processing the situation. The Republic fleet was scattered, many ships providing ground support or resupplying. Dooku had timed his attack perfectly, catch them dispersed and destroy them piecemeal. On the bridge, clone officers coordinated defensive maneuvers with practiced efficiency. Admiral Yularen barked orders, trying to consolidate the fleet before the separatists could exploit their positioning. Steve watched the tactical display, seeing patterns he recognized from naval warfare. Flanking maneuvers, divided attention, the classic hammer and anvil. "They're trying to split your formation," Steve said, pointing to the display. "Force you to defend multiple vectors at once. If your ships turn to engage the cruisers, those frigates will shred your ground support vessels." Yularen glanced at him with irritation. "I'm aware, Captain, but we don't have enough ships in position to—" "Then don't defend," Steve interrupted. "Attack. Concentrate your heavy hitters on Dooku's flagship. Make him the one responding to you." "That's suicide," Yularen protested. "His ship outguns anything we have." "Which is exactly why he won't expect you to go straight for him," Steve countered. "He's counting on you playing it safe, trying to minimize losses. Hit him hard enough, fast enough, and his formation falls apart trying to protect him." Anakin studied the tactical display, then grinned fiercely. "I like it. Aggressive tactics, my favorite kind." "General Skywalker," Yularen said warningly. "If this fails—" "It won't," Anakin interrupted. "Captain Rogers just proved he understands battlefield tactics. Besides, when has playing it safe ever worked against Dooku?" He turned to Steve. "You're with me. We're taking a squadron of starfighters and hitting their command ship directly." Steve had never flown a spacecraft before, but he'd also never backed down from a fight. "Lead the way." Minutes later, Steve found himself in the back seat of a Republic starfighter, Anakin at the controls. The general's flying was aggressive, bordering on reckless. Tight turns, impossible angles, diving through crossfire that would have destroyed lesser pilots. Steve's enhanced reflexes helped him track the chaotic battle. But even he felt his stomach protest some of Anakin's maneuvers. "You always fly like you're trying to give your passengers heart attacks," Steve asked through the comm system. Anakin laughed. "You should see me when I'm really showing off." He rolled the fighter, dodging a stream of laser fire from a vulture droid. "Besides, I've got the Force guiding me. We're perfectly safe." "The Force doesn't protect against physics, General." "Shows what you know about the Force." Despite the banter, Steve recognized Anakin's skill. The young general was one of the finest pilots Steve had ever seen, making split-second decisions that kept them alive through overwhelming fire. The squadron followed Anakin's lead, their formation tight despite the chaos. But as they approached Dooku's flagship, Steve saw the trap within the trap. Droid fighters were converging from all sides, trying to box in the Republic squadron. Standard defensive formation would get them killed. They needed something unexpected. "General, break the squadron into 3 groups, Steve said quickly. "Send 2 groups wide, make them think we're trying to flank, then punch straight through with the center group while their fighters chase the decoys." Anakin processed the strategy instantly. "Risky. The decoy groups will take heavy fire." "Then make sure the volunteers know what they're signing up for," Steve replied. "I never ask men to take risks I wouldn't take myself." "Which group are we?" Anakin asked, already knowing the answer. "Center group. We're going in." The plan worked. The droid fighters divided their attention, chasing the flanking groups, while Anakin led the center punch straight toward the command ship. Turbo laser fire filled space around them, but Anakin's flying bordered on precognitive. He seemed to know where each shot would be before it fired. They reached the flagship's hangar bay, and that's when Steve saw him. Count Dooku stood on the landing platform, lightsaber ignited, a sardonic smile on his aristocratic features. He was waiting for them, confident and composed, the red blade of his weapon casting bloody light across the deck. The starfighter landed hard, and Steve emerged with shield ready. Anakin leapt from the cockpit, his own lightsaber blazing blue, fury evident in his aggressive stance. "Skywalker," Dooku greeted smoothly, always rushing headlong into danger. "And you've brought a pet?" His eyes fixed on Steve with calculating interest. "How intriguing. The disturbance in the Force, it came from you." "Count Dooku, I presume," Steve said, shield raised defensively. "I've heard about you. Jedi turned Sith, leading a war that's killing thousands. Where I come from, we call that treason." Dooku's smile widened. "Treason? My dear fellow, I'm trying to save the galaxy from a corrupt republic that treats its soldiers as disposable tools. Surely you, of all people, can appreciate that concern." Steve's eyes narrowed. Dooku had been listening somehow, or had spies in the Republic fleet. Either way, the Sith Lord knew exactly what Steve had argued in the council chamber. "You don't care about the clones," Steve said flatly. "You're using them. Just like you're using everyone else in this war." "Perhaps," Dooku acknowledged, "but I speak the truth nonetheless. The Republic is dying, Captain Rogers. The Jedi are its enforcers, blind to their own corruption. I offer something better: order, strength, clarity of purpose." "Through tyranny," Steve countered. "I've heard that speech before." Every dictator in history promised order and strength. They all left behind mountains of corpses. "How refreshingly naive," Dooku said. Then his lightsaber moved in a blur of motion, and the battle began. Anakin engaged Dooku directly, their lightsabers clashing in a deadly dance. Steve had seen skilled fighters before, but this was something beyond human capacity. Superhuman speed, strength augmented by this mystical force, every movement flowing with lethal grace. Dooku was toying with Anakin, Steve realized. Every parry was measured, every counterattack designed to frustrate rather than finish. The Sith Lord was a master duelist enjoying his superiority, but he'd made a mistake. He'd assumed Steve would stay out of a lightsaber duel. Steve had never been good at meeting expectations. He timed his approach carefully, waiting for the moment Dooku committed to a heavy strike against Anakin. Then Steve moved, shield leading, closing the distance with enhanced speed. Dooku sensed him at the last moment, tried to redirect his attack, but vibranium met crimson energy in a shower of sparks. The impact drove Dooku back, surprise flickering across his features. Steve pressed the advantage, shield strikes combining with brutal hand-to-hand techniques. He couldn't match a lightsaber's lethality, but he could disrupt Dooku's rhythm, force him to divide his attention. Anakin seized the opportunity, his attacks becoming more aggressive. Now Dooku faced two opponents working in tandem, a Jedi general who fought with passionate intensity and an enhanced super soldier whose shield could deflect lightsaber strikes. "Fascinating," Dooku said, breathing harder now. "You have no force sensitivity, yet you move like a warrior of legend. What are you, Captain Rogers?" "Just a soldier," Steve replied, blocking a force push with his shield and feeling the kinetic energy dissipate through the vibranium. "But I've fought bullies all my life. You're just bigger than most." Dooku's eyes narrowed, and suddenly the Sith Lord's demeanor changed. The playfulness vanished, replaced by cold calculation. He raised his hand, and force lightning erupted toward Steve. The blue-white energy struck Steve's shield and cascaded around it, seeking a path to his body. Steve gritted his teeth as electricity found gaps in his defense, muscles seizing. The pain was extraordinary, but Steve Rogers had learned long ago how to push through pain. He advanced step by agonizing step, shield raised, absorbing the lightning while moving forward. Dooku's eyes widened. He'd expected the lightning to incapacitate this strange warrior instantly. Anakin struck from the side, forcing Dooku to cut off the lightning and defend. The three combatants exchanged rapid blows, the hangar bay becoming a storm of energy and vibranium. But Dooku was retreating now, moving toward a shuttle at the far end of the bay. "This has been enlightening, Captain Rogers," he called out, "but I think it's time we ended this dance. I look forward to studying you further. After all, the Republic's newest weapon deserves proper analysis." He gestured, and the hangar's emergency blast doors began closing. Dooku leapt onto his shuttle with force-enhanced agility, the ship's engines already firing. Steve made a decision in a heartbeat. He hurled his shield with all his enhanced strength, the vibranium disc spinning through the air toward the shuttle's engine intake. But Dooku was faster. A force push deflected the shield's trajectory by inches, and the shuttle accelerated through the closing hangar doors. Steve's shield ricocheted off the blast door and returned to his hand as the doors sealed with a resounding clang. "Damn it!" Anakin shouted, slamming his fist against a support column. We had him. No, Steve said quietly, watching the display screens showing Dooku's shuttle escaping toward hyperspace. He had us. That whole engagement was a test. He wanted to see what I could do, how I fought. We gave him exactly what he wanted. Anakin's anger faded into troubled realization. You're right. Dooku never stays to fight unless he's certain he'll win or learn something valuable. He got his data. He looked at Steve. Which means you're on the Separatists' target list now. Won't be the first time someone powerful wanted me dead, Steve replied. But privately, he was troubled. Dooku had manipulated the entire engagement, from the fleet battle to the personal confrontation. The Sith Lord was playing a deeper game, and Steve had just revealed his capabilities to one of the war's masterminds. They fought their way back to their starfighter, destroying droids and escaping as Republic forces pressed their assault on the now leaderless Separatist fleet. The gambit had worked. Dooku's flagship was crippled, the enemy formation scattered. But Steve couldn't shake the feeling that they'd lost something more important than they'd gained. Back aboard the Republic Star Destroyer, as casualties were counted and repairs begun, Steve found Rex and his men in the barracks. They were cleaning weapons, checking armor, engaging in the timeless rituals of soldiers after battle. "Sir," Rex greeted, standing at attention. The other clones followed suit. "At ease," Steve said. "I wanted to check on you men. Everyone make it through the fleet battle?" "All present and accounted for, sir," Rex replied. "Heard you went up against Count Dooku himself." "That true?" "It's true." Steve sat down on an equipment crate, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the past day. He's skilled, dangerous, and he knows about me now, which means the Separatists will be developing countermeasures. Five spoke up, curiosity evident. "Sir, what you said to the Jedi Council about how clones are treated, that's really how you see us." Steve met his gaze steadily. "I see soldiers who deserve the same respect any soldier deserves. You fight, you bleed, you die for the Republic. That earns you more than being treated like equipment." The clones exchanged glances, something passing between them that Steve couldn't quite read. Finally, Rex spoke, his voice carefully controlled. "Most people don't think of us that way, sir. We're products, purpose-built. The Kaminoans made us to be soldiers, and that's all we are." "No," Steve said firmly. "That's all you were created to be. But what you are, that's your choice. Every decision you make, every brother you save, every time you choose mercy over brutality, that's you deciding who you are. Nobody else gets to make that choice for you." Echo, who'd been quiet until now, spoke softly. "Sir, did you really fight a war to free people who were owned by others?" Steve nodded. "The American Civil War, before my time, but it shaped my country. We decided that no person could own another, that freedom was a fundamental right. A lot of good people died to make that principle reality." "And after the war?" Rex asked. "The people who were freed, what happened to them?" "They became citizens," Steve replied. "Built lives, raised families, contributed to society. Fought in later wars as free men defending the country that finally recognized their humanity." He paused. "It wasn't perfect. There was prejudice, injustice that took generations to address. But the principle was established. All people are created equal." The clones were silent, absorbing this. Finally, Hardcase laughed, though there was little humor in it. "Equality, hell of a concept, sir. Wonder what that would look like for us." I don't know, Steve admitted. This isn't my galaxy, and I don't fully understand your society. But I know this. You men are the finest soldiers I've ever served with. If I have any say in it, the Republic will start recognizing that. Rex stepped forward, removing his helmet. His face was young, but lined with combat stress, and his eyes held a depth that spoke of seeing too much, too soon. Captain Rogers, whatever happens next, I want you to know, we're with you. The 501st stands with you. One by one, the other clones removed their helmets, a gesture Steve understood. They were showing their faces, claiming their individuality, making a statement that transcended military protocol. Steve Rogers stood, his throat tight with emotion. Then we'll face whatever comes together, brothers in arms. As alarms began blaring again, more separatist forces detected, another battle beginning. Steve strapped on his shield and prepared to fight alongside men who'd become brothers in a single day. He didn't know that Palpatine was watching through multiple intelligence channels, studying this outsider who threatened to disrupt carefully laid plans. He didn't know that Order 66 was encoded in every clone's brain, waiting for activation. He didn't know that the war itself was a lie designed to destroy the Jedi and install a dictatorship. But Steve Rogers was good at one thing: finding the truth and standing against tyranny, no matter the cost. And in a galaxy built on lies, that made him the most dangerous man alive. The weeks that followed transformed Captain Steve Rogers from an anomaly into a legend. Word spread through the clone ranks like wildfire, a soldier from another dimension who treated them as brothers, who fought beside them without hesitation, who stood before the Jedi Council and demanded they be recognized as men rather than equipment. The story grew with each retelling, embellished but rooted in truth. Steve didn't seek the attention. He simply did what he'd always done: lead from the front, refuse to sacrifice lives unnecessarily, and stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. He fought on Ryloth, where his tactical innovations broke a separatist blockade and saved thousands of Twi'lek civilians. He held the line on Umbara when clone casualties mounted under a Jedi general's reckless orders, eventually confronting the Jedi directly about his disregard for clone lives. He trained new clone units in combined arms tactics, showing them that thinking creatively could keep them alive longer than blind obedience. And through it all, he asked questions about the war's origins, about who commissioned the clone army, about the convenient timing of crises that always seemed to expand Republic executive powers, questions that made Jedi uncomfortable and made politicians nervous. Anakin Skywalker became an unlikely ally. The young general respected Steve's combat prowess and appreciated his willingness to challenge authority when lives were at stake. They fought side by side in a dozen battles, their contrasting styles, Steve's tactical discipline and Anakin's aggressive improvisation, complementing each other perfectly. But Anakin also noticed something troubling. Steve was always tired now, the strain of constant combat wearing even his enhanced physiology. There were no breaks in this war, no leave rotations, just an endless meat grinder consuming soldiers on both sides. And Steve, true to his nature, refused to rest while others fought. "You're going to burn out," Anakin warned one evening as they reviewed battle plans aboard a Republic cruiser. "Even the Force-sensitive need rest, Steve. You're just human." "Enhanced human," Steve corrected with a tired smile. and I'll rest when the shooting stops." "The shooting never stops," Anakin said quietly. "That's the problem with this war. It just keeps going, consuming everything. Sometimes I wonder if anyone actually wants it to end." The comment stuck with Steve. He'd been thinking the same thing. The Clone Wars had the feel of a managed conflict, escalations carefully timed, victories always partial, the enemy never quite defeated but never quite victorious. It reminded him of something, though he couldn't place what. Then came Coruscant. The Republic capital itself came under attack by General Grievous's fleet, a bold strike at the heart of Galactic government. Steve fought through the chaos as separatist forces landed across the city planet, his shield becoming a symbol of hope for defenders who saw this outsider warrior standing against impossible odds. It was during the battle for the Senate building that Steve encountered them. Clone troopers executing Order 66. He was fighting alongside Jedi Master Shaak Ti, protecting a group of senators when the clone squad with them suddenly turned their weapons on the Jedi. Steve's instincts screamed warning a split second before they fired, and he threw himself forward, shield intercepting the blaster bolts meant for Shaak Ti's back. "What are you doing?" Steve shouted at the clones, genuinely shocked. These were men he'd trained with, fought beside. "Stand down." But their eyes were empty, mechanical. They turned their weapons on him without hesitation, without recognition. These weren't soldiers making a choice. They were automatons following programming. Steve fought them non-lethally when he could, disarming and incapacitating rather than killing. But more kept coming, and across the city he could hear the sounds of Jedi dying. Shaak Ti fought with desperate skill, deflecting shots while trying to reach the clones' minds through the Force. "Something's wrong," she gasped. "I can feel it. They're not in control. Something's overriding their will." Steve's blood ran cold. The inhibitor chips. He'd suspected something after seeing those infiltrator droids, after noticing the clones' sometimes mechanical obedience. But he'd never imagined this, a kill switch built into every clone's brain, ready to turn them into executioners. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Steve said, covering Shaak Ti as they fought toward a secure position. "Can you reach the Council?" warned them. "I'll try," Shaak Ti replied, but her face was pale. "Steve, if the entire clone army has been compromised, then we figure out how to fix it," Steve interrupted. "But first we survive." They reached a maintenance level beneath the Senate building, temporarily safe. Shaak Ti attempted to contact other Jedi through the Force, but the responses were scattered, desperate. The Jedi Order was being systematically destroyed by the army they'd led for 3 years. "This was planned," Steve said, pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. "The clone army, the war, all of it. Someone's been playing both sides, using the conflict to position themselves for exactly this moment." "But who?" Shaak Ti asked. "Who could orchestrate something this vast?" Before Steve could answer, his comm crackled. Rex's voice came through, strained and desperate. "Captain Rogers, if you're receiving this, something's wrong. The entire army just received an order to eliminate all Jedi. I don't know why, but I can feel it trying to make me comply. My brothers, they're not themselves." "Rex, where are you?" Steve demanded. "Hangar Bay 7 with General Skywalker." "He's fighting off our own men. Sir, you need to know. I removed my inhibitor chip months ago. Fives discovered them before he died, tried to warn us. Most clones don't know the chips exist." Rex's voice cracked. "We're weapons, sir. built-in kill switches waiting to be activated. Steve's jaw clenched. Can you reach other clones? Tell them about the chips? Already trying, but most won't listen. The programming is too strong. Sir, the Republic's done. Whatever comes next, it won't be what we fought for. Then we make sure what comes next is better, Steve replied firmly. Hold your position. I'm coming to you. The journey through Coruscant was a nightmare. Steve moved through a city at war with itself. Clone troopers hunting Jedi, civilians caught in crossfire, and everywhere the sense that civilization was collapsing. He saved who he could, Jedi Padawans, clone troopers who'd managed to resist the chip's programming, civilians trapped in combat zones. And he fought. Not with the rage of vengeance, but with the controlled fury of a man who'd seen betrayal before, who understood that soldiers were being used as weapons against their will. He found Anakin in Hangar Bay 7, surrounded by disabled clone troopers. The young Jedi's face was anguished, his lightsaber trembling in his hand. Rex stood beside him, helmet off, weapon lowered but ready. "Steve," Anakin said, relief flooding his features. "Thank God, I thought—" He stopped, looking at the unconscious clones around him. "I didn't want to kill them. They're not in control." "I know," Steve said. "Inhibitor chips, built into every clone from creation, designed to turn them into assassins on command. Someone's been planning this for years." "The Chancellor's called an emergency session," Rex reported. "Declared the Jedi enemies of the Republic, claims they attempted a coup. He's consolidating power, using the crisis to—" He stopped, realization dawning. "The Chancellor, it's been him all along." Steve nodded grimly. "Palpatine. He's been manipulating both sides, using the war to grant himself emergency powers, positioning himself to take complete control. And he's using the clones as his executioners." Anakin's face darkened with a complexity of emotions: betrayal, rage, confusion. "That's impossible. The Chancellor has been a friend, a mentor. He's guided the Republic through this war." "He's guided the Republic exactly where he wanted it," Steve countered. "Into tyranny, with an army of programmed soldiers to enforce his will." "Anakin, look around. This is a coup, but not the one Palpatine's claiming. He's killing the Jedi because they're the only force that could stop him." "We need proof," Anakin said, but his voice lacked conviction. Steve could see the young Jedi was already questioning everything he'd believed. "Then let's get it," Steve replied. "But first, we need to save who we can and figure out how to deactivate those chips." Over the next hours, Steve coordinated a desperate rescue operation. Using Rex's knowledge of clone protocols and Steve's tactical expertise, they reached clone troopers who'd shown signs of resistance to the chip's programming. Not many, the conditioning was powerful, but enough to form a small force of free-thinking soldiers. They also found Jedi survivors, masters and Padawans who'd escaped the initial purge through skill, luck, or warning from Force-sensitive allies. Shakti rallied them, creating a temporary safe haven in the lower levels of Coruscant. And through it all, Steve noticed something. The Jedi who survived weren't the most powerful or skilled. They were the ones who'd formed genuine connections with their clone troopers, who'd treated them as people rather than tools. Those clones had fought the chip's programming harder, given their Jedi generals precious seconds to escape. Compassion, Steve realized, was its own kind of armor. But the Republic was transforming rapidly. Palpatine declared himself Emperor, announced the formation of a galactic empire, and proclaimed the Jedi as traitors. The Senate, cowed by clone occupation and political maneuvering, offered no resistance. Democracy died to thunderous applause or terrified silence. Steve watched it happen from the shadows, recognizing every manipulation tactic, every propaganda technique. He'd seen this before in his own world, charismatic leaders using crisis to seize absolute power, wrapping tyranny in the flag of security and order. "What do we do?" Anakin asked. The young general had aged years and days, his faith in the institutions he'd served shattered. Steve looked at the assembled survivors, a dozen Jedi, maybe 30 clone troopers, who'd removed their chips, and a handful of politicians who'd voted against Palpatine's power grab. Not an army, barely a resistance, but it was something. "We do what we've always done," Steve said. "We stand up to tyranny. We protect people who can't protect themselves. We fight for what's right, even when we're outnumbered and outgunned." He met each person's eyes in turn. "I've been fighting this fight my whole life. I lost once, frozen for 70 years, woke up to find the world had moved on without me. But I kept fighting because the fight mattered more than any one person's victory or defeat." "This empire has the entire clone army," Rex pointed out. "Millions of soldiers programmed to obey. How do we fight that?" "The same way resistance movements have always fought," Steve replied. "Underground networks, sabotage, intelligence gathering. We find other clones and free them from their chips. We help Jedi escape the Purge. We document the Empire's atrocities and spread the truth. And most importantly, we show people there's an alternative to submission." Shaak Ti stepped forward. "Captain Rogers, you're from another dimension. You don't belong to this galaxy. You could search for a way home, escape this conflict entirely." Steve had thought about that. Somewhere in this vast galaxy there might be technology or force abilities that could send him back to his own dimension, to the world he knew and the life he'd left behind. But looking at these people, soldiers who'd been betrayed by their creators, warriors who'd lost their order, civilians who'd watched democracy collapse, Steve knew he couldn't leave. Not when there was still a fight to be won. "I've never run from a fight," Steve said simply. "And I'm not starting now. This empire, this Palpatine, they represent everything I've spent my life opposing. As long as I'm in this galaxy, I'm going to fight them." Anakin smiled for the first time in days, something of his old fire returning. "Then I guess we're starting a rebellion." "Not starting," Steve corrected. "Continuing. The fight for freedom never really ends. It just takes different forms." He looked at Rex. "Captain, can you start reaching out to other clones who might be sympathetic? Carefully. We need to build a network." "Already have a list, sir," Rex replied. "Clones who questioned orders, who showed independent thinking. It's not many, but it's a start." "Master Tai, you're the senior Jedi here," Steve continued. "I need you to contact surviving members of the Order. Tell them there's a safe haven, but also tell them the galaxy needs them to be more than warriors now. They need to be teachers, healers, symbols of hope." Shaak Ti nodded. "The Order must change if it's to survive. Perhaps this catastrophe is an opportunity to return to our original purpose, serving the Force by serving the living." Steve turned to the assembled politicians. "You're going to be our political arm. Not all senators rolled over for Palpatine. Find the ones who still believe in democracy. Quietly build a coalition. When the time comes, we'll need legitimate political alternatives to the Empire." "And what will you do?" Anakin asked. Steve picked up his shield, the vibranium surface scratched and scorched from countless battles but still intact. "What I do best, lead from the front. Show this Empire that one person standing up for what's right can inspire others to do the same." He paused, something hardening in his expression. "And I'm going to have a conversation with Palpatine. He wants absolute power. Let's see how he handles someone who can't be intimidated." "Steve, that's suicide," Anakin protested. "Palpatine is a Sith Lord. I felt his power when I confronted him. He's been hiding it for years, but now that he's revealed himself, then he needs to understand there are forces in this galaxy he didn't account for," Steve interrupted. "I'm not saying I'll win, but I am saying he needs to know there will be consequences for what he's done. Fear works both ways." Over the following months, the pattern of rebellion took shape. Steve became a ghost haunting the Empire, appearing where clone troopers were ordered to commit atrocities, where Jedi survivors needed extraction, where Imperial overreach threatened innocent lives. His shield became a symbol, stories spreading through underground networks of a warrior who couldn't be stopped, who protected the weak and defied the Empire. He freed clones from their programming, dozens at first, then hundreds. Each freed clone became a recruiter, reaching brothers who'd begun to question their orders. The chips could be removed with precise surgery, and those who underwent the procedure rediscovered their autonomy, men choosing to fight rather than programmed weapons following commands. He worked alongside Jedi, learning to coordinate his tactics with their abilities. The combination proved devastating to Imperial forces. Force precognition identifying threats, Steve's strategic mind exploiting weaknesses, and free-thinking clone troopers executing plans with precision born of training and choice. And slowly, impossibly, the rebellion grew. But Steve knew it wasn't enough. Palpatine sat secure in his throne room on Coruscant, protected by the Imperial Guard, commanding legions of soldiers. Taking down a galactic dictator required more than small victories. It required undermining the legitimacy of his rule. So Steve decided to challenge that legitimacy directly. He infiltrated the Imperial Palace, not with an army, not with Jedi powers, but with the same skills that had let him operate behind enemy lines in World War II. Disguise, misdirection, exploiting the assumption that threats came from obvious sources. He reached the throne room as Palpatine met with his inner circle, Imperial Moffs, military commanders, and Darth Vader, the Emperor's new enforcer. Steve waited until the room was full, until all the key figures of the Empire were present. Then he stepped from the shadows, shield on his arm, standing alone before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "Emperor Palpatine," Steve said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "I'm here to give you a choice. End this. Dissolve the Empire, restore the Republic, free the clones from their programming. Do it now, and you can walk away." The throne room erupted in chaos. Imperial guards rushed forward, but Palpatine raised a hand, stopping them. The Emperor's face split into a predatory smile. "Captain Rogers," Palpatine said, his voice carrying dark amusement. "How bold, how predictable. You storm my throne room with nothing but a shield and audacity, demanding I surrender the empire I spent decades creating." He leaned forward. "Tell me, what makes you think you have any power here?" "Because you're afraid of me," Steve replied calmly. not of what I can do physically. I know you could probably kill me if you tried hard enough, but you're afraid of what I represent. A soldier who refuses to follow unjust orders, a symbol that can't be corrupted, a reminder that power doesn't come from fear and control, but from standing up for what's right even when it costs you everything. Palpatine's smile faded. You understand nothing of power. I understand tyranny, Steve countered. I fought it all my life. You all look the same. Different faces, different names, but the same belief that you have the right to rule over others through force. It never works. You can occupy territory, control armies, command governments, but you can never control the human spirit. People will always fight for freedom, and I'll be right there beside them. Darth Vader stepped forward, his breathing mechanical and ominous. You are brave, Captain, but bravery without strength is merely foolishness. Steve met the Dark Lord's gaze through his mask. I've got plenty of strength, and unlike you, I didn't trade my soul to get it. The tension in the room reached breaking point. Palpatine's eyes gleamed with malevolence. Kill him! Steve knew he couldn't win this fight. The Empire's full might descended on him. Force, lightning, lightsabers, blaster fire from dozens of guards. But he didn't need to win. He just needed to survive long enough. His shield deflected Vader's lightsaber. He dodged Force lightning with enhanced reflexes. He fought with every technique he'd learned across a lifetime of combat, showing the Empire that he couldn't be easily killed. And all the while, recording devices hidden throughout the throne room captured everything. An emperor ordering the execution of a man asking for peace, a government responding to words with violence, a tyranny revealing its true nature. Steve took a hit from Force lightning that sent him to one knee. Another lightsaber strike burned across his shoulder. He was losing, bleeding, but he met Palpatine's eyes with defiance. You can kill me, Steve said through gritted teeth. But my death won't stop what's coming. You've created a galaxy of victims, and victims eventually become fighters. Every clone you programmed, every Jedi you killed, every world you oppressed, they're all going to rise against you. And when they do, they'll remember that someone stood in your throne room and told you to your face that your empire was built on lies. Palpatine raised his hand for the killing blow, and Rex burst through the doors with a squad of freed clone troopers and Jedi, weapons blazing. Nobody kills our captain, Rex shouted, providing covering fire as Anakin deflected blaster bolts meant for Steve. The extraction was violent and chaotic, but they made it out. Steve, barely conscious, carried by his brothers in arms through corridors filled with Imperial forces. They reached a waiting ship and jumped to hyperspace seconds before Imperial Star Destroyers could open fire. Steve woke up hours later in a medical bay, bandaged and exhausted. Rex sat beside him, helmet off, expression grave. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen, Rex said. You almost got yourself killed. Did you get the recordings? Steve asked. Rex nodded. Every second, already spreading through underground networks. The whole galaxy is going to see the Emperor order your execution for asking for peace. He paused. It's working, Steve. Planets are openly defying Imperial occupation. Clone battalions are going AWOL. People are starting to believe they can fight back. Steve closed his eyes, feeling the weight of exhaustion and satisfaction. Good. That's how every revolution starts. One person standing up, then another, until suddenly there's an army of people who refuse to kneel. In the months and years that followed, the rebellion that Steve had helped ignite grew into something that would eventually challenge the Empire itself. Free clones formed the core of a professional resistance force. Jedi survivors became symbols and leaders, and throughout the galaxy, people whispered about Captain Rogers, the soldier from another dimension who'd stood before the Emperor and refused to bow. Steve Rogers never made it home to his own dimension. The technology didn't exist, or if it did, he never had time to search for it. There was always another battle, another group of people who needed help, another stand to make against tyranny. But standing on the bridge of a rebel cruiser years later, watching freed clones train new recruits, while Jedi taught younglings and senators planned the restoration of democracy, Steve realized something profound. He was home. Maybe not the home he'd been born to, but a home nonetheless. Because home wasn't a place or even a dimension. It was standing alongside people who fought for something bigger than themselves, who refused to give up hope even in the darkest times. Rex approached, now general in the growing rebel alliance, his face lined with age but his eyes still sharp. "We've got reports of a new Imperial superweapon, something called a Death Star. Council's asking for tactical assessments." Steve smiled, tired but unbroken. "Then let's give them one. After all, I've faced down plenty of weapons that were supposed to be unstoppable. What's one more?" As the ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying soldiers toward another battle in an endless war, Steve Rogers felt the familiar weight of his shield and the presence of brothers at his side. The fight would continue, as it always did. Tyranny would rise in new forms, demanding new resistance. But wherever there were people willing to stand up for freedom, wherever there were soldiers choosing honor over orders, wherever there were individuals who believed that one person could make a difference, there would be hope, and Captain America would be there, shield raised, leading from the front. The galaxy far, far away had gained something it desperately needed, a reminder that heroes weren't defined by the Force, by mystical powers, or by destiny. Sometimes a hero was just a good man who refused to back down, who treated soldiers as brothers, and who believed that freedom was worth fighting for, no matter the odds. In barracks across rebel-held territory, freed clone troopers told stories to new recruits. Stories of the day a stranger fell from the sky and showed them they were more than programming, more than weapons, more than expendable tools. Stories of a captain who'd fought beside them, bled with them, and reminded them of the most important truth. They had always been men. They just needed someone to help them remember it. And in the shadows of the Empire, Palpatine sat on his throne and contemplated the variable he hadn't anticipated, a soldier from another dimension who disrupted decades of carefully laid plans. The Emperor had resources, power, armies beyond counting. But Steve Rogers had something more dangerous, an unshakable belief that freedom would always triumph over tyranny, that people were worth fighting for, and that no empire, no matter how powerful, could stand forever against those willing to resist. The Clone Wars had ended. The Galactic Civil War had begun. And this time, the soldiers fighting for freedom did so by choice, led by a man who understood that the only true victory was one that honored the dignity of every person willing to stand and fight. May the Force be with them all. But more importantly, may they have the courage to forge their own destiny, just as Captain America had taught them.